share this.
It's funny.
Oh, we're live.
We are?
Yeah.
Well, welcome, good people. How are y'all?
Good morning, friend.
Anything on mine? Let's see. Let's go to my page and see if I can find it on mine. Let's see what's going on there.
I was gonna say I'm waiting for Facebook to
There
figure
it
it
is.
out, but StreamYard's figured it out. Oh,
Yes, we're live. Let's see if I can do like this. Turn this down. Yep. Good morning, good people. How are ya? Those of you on the West Coast, how's that commute into work or play or wherever you're going? The rest of the world, how y'all doing? What's going on in your world? Um, yes. So you guys might as well get used to these two beautiful faces that you'll see for a long time. Um, Monday mornings. Somebody might, if you're new to this, you're like, well, how did you guys get here? It was a series of conversations that started, and we decided that it could be a contribution to people in their being.
yeah.
But not being about your being. Sometimes, what does he mean by being? You know, human being. You are being. What's up, Tina? How you doing? Um, I we have some dope ass conversations, yeah, and we just want to invite you to those conversations about what is the possibility that's being created by doing this, you
Yeah.
know. And today, and we only do it for 30 minutes because I have to turn. I turn into a pumpkin at 7:29, and I have to be picked before the 29th minute of the hour, or I'll go poof. I'll be orange. And you guys will be like, "What is that?" It's a mess on the screen. So,
Back to the pumpkin patch with you.
yes, tis the season. You know, tis the season. Um,
So we're walking through the door of death today.
yeah. So, how did we get there? How do we start talking about that?
I have no idea. Saturday, you said, I think this should be our topic, and I said yes. And the reason I said yes is because every other Friday night, I receive energy work
Hmm.
from CD's Rivas. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna mess up her last name. And October's theme was killing energy. And so when you said that, I was like, yeah, we're already in that theme. So yeah, let's roll with it.
And I think I wanted, and not to be morbid, and Tori, if she grew up hearing this, it's just like, I my wife got sick and she had kidney retinal failure, kidney possibilities, I'm calling it now. And I went to the extreme, and then my mom, some of you guys know that my mom has dementia and my parents are older. So I start looking at, I felt like everything was caving in and it was the end because they were sick and they possibly could die. And I was freaking the fuck out about that. And then I realized, oh, what is that? And then I thought about what I shared with you before. I had this amazing experience in July where I went to Puerto Vallarta and we're in that bay there. And I went on a trip with some dolphins and some whales, whatever in the water. What else is in the water? Crocodiles, I believe they said they're in out there too. And yeah, crocodiles out there. So I go there and there was this energy under the boat because I didn't get in because Tori was sick at that time too. And I was like, what the hell is this? And so I stayed on the boat with her, went back after I took her off the boat, went back for a second trip with another group of people. And that's when I had this experience of this, like a dream that I had before. I had this, but it wasn't a dream because I remember once I was back on the boat, it happening because it's like I don't have dreams. It's like being sleepy. I have these experiences, and so in this experience with this on this boat, I start to feel. I could feel all the eyes of the whales and the dolphins tip. Orcas are dolphins, not whales, by the way. But anyway, um, so hey, what's up, family? Dwayne. So I had this experience, and it was like a end of time experience, but it wasn't in a time. It was a wall of like blackness with a white gray space, which was more, if you want to say dimensional. Others on the other side, it's like I went to the very end of space and I was there and I felt this swirling energy of these dolphins and these whales. And they were actually like, and I could hear, and yesterday I told you guys in the group, I could hear, and I could hear that still. I know that's my dolphin talk for people who don't
Good
know what
job. Well
that is.
done.
Anyway, I, uh, I got to that point and I was just like, I don't know what that is. And then when Tori got sick and when I'm dealing with my mom and my dad and all of that, I just start having this thing about this sadness, this deep sadness, like death was the end. And then I
Mm.
realized that that is a point of where we get triggered. And and yesterday I've been thinking about this all. How many of us don't live life to the fullest and try to prevent aging as if it's a bad thing?
Mm.
Now, I want to say now, fuck aging. I don't like that word. Maturing. Wine doesn't age. States
Chronological maturing.
mature. So I've started looking at that. What is that we have this piece that it's the finality, and and my knowing is not the finality. It's just the beginning of another choice.
Yeah.
And the sadness is that we think the person's gone. And with my stupid ass, with all of my entity comings and goings, I realize that it's not an end. And I know that sometimes that goes against like my religious what's up, Kathy? Tori, she's on too. So my religious
Good
uh
morning, y'all.
my my religious upbringing actually had this piece of Christ rising in Christianity. And it's just like, what about our rising?
Yeah,
What about our rising? And how is this once you switch the flip the switch of death, how does it start to be a contribution to living?
that,
So that you unplug all the distractions of the fear of death to, okay, that is a possibility. That's a choice. If I'm tired and I want to change. Good morning, Jennifer.
good
Uh,
morning, Jennifer.
Kathy's on here. Good morning, Kathy. Um, so
Tori's waving.
yes, Tori's waving. So that was pretty much how I got to that piece. And when I started exploring that, uh, so I told you also that recently, everybody, I bought me a Lexus for my retirement gift to me. Well, Tori nudged me. And I'm the type of person that would take forever to make up my mind. And yes, Tori, I'm giving you some gratitude and some acknowledgement. We saw the same damn car like in June, but it took me 3 months before I bought it. So
Well,
all
you
that
get it when you
is,
get it.
yes, all that shit is. I just joined Uncrate, all that bullshit. But here's the piece about it. The question of it is, what keeps the whole concept of death for me? Oh, so I've been exploring as like entities. Uh, I should have known for the longest that it's not the end, but just a transition because how much I play with entities and spirits. My friend Arturo's been in my house and stuff has moved. Yeah, y'all. It's just kind of a circus sometime in my house with entities. And they're welcome. Those who are contributing, those who aren't, yeah, get the fuck out of my house. But anyway, uh, there's a space in my house now where my Lexus sits called the garage. When I close the door and I turn the lights out, it's pure quiet and pure blackness. Occasionally, when I would go in there, because we have a refrigerator in there, and I would go keep like extra stuff, and I'll go get a sauce, whatever. And I would go in the garage, and before I turn the light on, I would close the door, and I would take in the energy of that darkness, of that death. And death is just something that we imagine the unknown, but there is also a piece in that. That what if we actually were able to pull the fear out and be able to play with that? What would the transition be like when it was time to truly transition, when we choose to transition? So
Mm.
I started looking at it from the point of death being, and you see it all the time. Like right now, where we live in the fall, other than tornadoes, like y'all had, uh, you see trees turning colors. You see things falling off the tree. You also see the energy. If you pay attention to the energy, if you really start to pay attention to the subtle energies of the universe, you can also watch the tree go like, this in the spring, and little buds are coming out. And when the fall comes, you see the tree go, you can actually see it. And what would it be like if we could actually just experience that, knowing that it's okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Megan, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Um, so what's pinging for me is the point of view that we have around death being finality
Hmm.
and not transition.
Yeah.
So like that's a piece. Because what happens when a tree actually dies? Like when it truly stops living, not just like dropping its leaves
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hibernate for the fall. But I'm thinking like my favorite example of this, the Sagittarius Aries pyromaniac in me, um, is when things catch fire. It's like a tree is struck by lightning in the forest and it burns to the ground. That becomes some of the most fertile ground. And out of that grows more nutrient richness than any place around it that hasn't been burned.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at and talking about and thinking about physical death and like
Mm.
leaving this body for another adventure.
Yeah.
And what about the other deaths, the identity deaths, the ego deaths,
Yeah.
the like the reason that we grieve when someone does leave their body, especially someone like us, like we know it's not the end.
Right.
My mom's hanging out over here, my poet hangs out over here. My grandfather used to literally lean on the back of my couch and I had to tell him to stop that shit because it freaked me out to
Yeah.
be washing dishes and see some dude sitting on my couch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that death is not an end,
Yeah.
but that didn't stop me from crying for 6 weeks when my poet
Yeah.
died.
And but that's okay too.
Yeah, because
Because that's
because there was the transition of our relationship from him in a body, me being able to pick up the phone and text him and physically hear his voice, to having to engage him out of a body.
yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece of practice for us to pay attention to the subtleties of living.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody. That's the subtle aspects of living that we miss, and death, and it's really, it's like what would it be like to really celebrate that that whole transition of death and living? The moment you come out of your mama's womb, you're beginning to go through the process. It's amazing. It's like the tree. The
Yeah.
moment it comes up out of the ground and breaks out of the ground and the buds and the fruit and all comes up, it is actually preparing to become either soil or fire in this
Mm.
reality.
Yeah.
So what are we preparing? What are we choosing or not choosing that will allow us to have more abundance in living instead of looking at death as the finality? Is that the right
Mm.
finality? Fine.
Yeah.
So what would that be like? It's like, and where do we live? And I'm speaking to myself out of the sadness of that instead of it is the loss of the physical body. It is a gift to be embodied.
Mm.
The judgments we put on the body, though, you would think it's not. I'm gonna say that again. It's a gift to be embodied, but the judgment, the self judgment we impose on the body, damn y'all, it's like the body, like fuck y'all, I'm out. What's up, brother? Sorry, how you doing?
I love that so much.
So I mean, so one of the things that I think that we might want to look at of this door of death is how do we welcome it just like we welcome spring?
Mm.
That what you resist and react to actually becomes polarized. And that's what creates more fear. And that's what creates the uncomfortable. Where is it where people actually have a practice? Like right now, that is kind of interesting that we say this because next week, I believe, where's my calendar? Next week, I think there's a couple of cultures that practice. I know in Ifa on November 1st, I believe, is the practice of honoring the dead.
Yeah.
And in Mexico, in South America, I also believe they started a celebration of that. So it's
Yeah.
embedded in certain communities. But do we still, even with all the celebration, do we still actually tap into the energy of the contribution of death?
I don't think so. I think that we spend a lot more time trying to hold on, trying to keep things status quo, trying to keep things the way that they are.
Yeah,
And a couple of my teachers have said that that comes out of the lack of faith that something greater can exist. So the only reason I won't hold on, I won't let go of this thing that I'm holding on
right.
to, like I've got this in my hand,
Yeah,
they're not paying me,
yeah,
y'all. Good body armor, if you want to pay me, I will receive a check. But this comes in a bigger size.
yeah,
And but as long as I got this one in my hand, I can't hold the bigger one because the
yeah,
bigger one is actually almost this size. I
yeah,
can't get both of these in my
yeah.
hand.
Exactly. You have to be willing to let go to take
Yeah.
to receive more, or
Mm-hmm.
expand outside of it. And that's the piece the piece about it is that in this practice, I mean, the the uncomfortable gift, and I keep on talking about Tori. I hope she doesn't mind me doing this, but the uncomfortable gift of her with the kidney possibilities is allowing, I believe, both of us to explore more. Which, here's the caveat that I wasn't going to say, but I'm going to say this to y'all because you're going to be like, what is that man talking about? So, what if right now, I want to everybody today, just notice today in the difficulty of being embodied. What if it didn't have to be a difficulty, but it was what was designed from living in this dimensional living the way we live? Is there another possibility that we haven't chosen yet as a collective? And I say that because when I started off, part of that piece of being on that boat that night, I saw something like what Dr. King said when he said, I've been to the mountaintop. I've been to the mountaintop of another possibility where we weren't assholes with each other.
Mm,
I saw that. And since I saw it, if I know that I see something, I know it's a possibility it can be.
yeah.
You
I
know,
love
good morning, Greg. What's up, cuz? Uh, so I mean, so and it's kind of interesting. I want people to sit with like, what do we fear the the most,
that.
most about not being here?
What do we fear the most about not being here?
Yes.
You
What,
know, I'm not the one to answer that question. I have a really weird relationship with death. So,
yeah.
what do
So
y'all
say,
fear?
wait, no. So what? Say more about it. What's your relationship with that?
I've okay. So
Maureen said,
some of
missing my
y'all,
kids and hugging them. Yeah.
yeah. So some of y'all are about to get a side of Lila y'all don't normally get. Welcome. Um, my mom had me at 17 and at 19 gave birth to a little boy who died 3 weeks later of SIDS.
Hmm.
For those of you who don't know, SIDS stands for sudden infant death syndrome. My brother went down for a nap and never woke up. My point of view around that for as long as I can remember is that little asshole left me alone with her. No, I have a lot of like compassion for my mom. She lost a baby. She just had her tubes tied. She was 19. She couldn't tied, clipped, and burned. Just like there were no more babies coming out of there. And but also, my personal point of view is that asshole left me alone with her.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's even when my grandparents died. even when my mom died, it's never been that um, I've been suicidal.
Yeah.
It's never been I never drank the religion Kool-Aid about death.
Yeah.
It's always been like another part of the video game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that reminds me of like Among Us. There's a video game called Among Us,
Uh-huh.
and there you're on a level, and there are crew members, and then there's an imposter. The imposter is a murderer, and if you get murdered, you still can play the game even after you're dead. You just no longer in a body.
Right.
You can still go through the board and do your tasks.
Yeah.
I think that I've always looked at it like that,
Yeah.
and I just didn't have an articulation for it.
Yeah.
And also, I never bothered with an articulation for it because most people I have this conversation with are like, "You think what about that
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
now?"
And here's the piece about it. And this is the piece where I sometimes, for me, you said something about people with religion, and this is not a slam on religion, but this is a aha moment for me about religion. If we talk about the God that people talk about, it's like everything stopped back in the past and God quit making stories about living.
Mm.
Where is the new edition or the what is the addendum of the Bible, the Quran, where God keeps on working with His people? I'm not saying,
Oh,
what I'm saying is that, and it makes me
yeah.
think, is there a death to those books too that stop any progression from moving forward with still that connection to the Creator?
That is
Those stories are
delicious.
those are connections to the Creator.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just wondering. It's just, and it's not a slam. So I hope nobody gets on there and be like, "Oh my God, John, you're what are you saying?" Well,
Well, if they
but
do, then
y'all
we
know
can talk
anyway. Y'all know
inside
what I
them.
ain't
They'll be
about.
fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Nancy.
But
Welcome.
hey, Nancy,
Um,
Lisa, what's up, cuz? So
my point of view about that is they exist in books like Conversations with God
yes,
and
yes,
all of Jan Van Zant's work.
yeah, yeah.
And John's book whenever it comes out. That's not a wedgie.
Reggie. But here's the piece too, and I want to go back and say something that I always challenge people that when we're talking about practicing of death and all. There is a guy that works on my car by the name of Lee. He has a shop in Northeast Portland off of Sandy. And I was going to see him when I first moved to Portland. I had a GT Ford. I got a Lexus. If he sees this, I had another Honda before, but he always told me to get a Japanese car because I wouldn't have to come see him as often like I did with my Ford. That's just a sales pitch. Go Japanese, just kidding. So when I went in there, I was always amazed. I would get there early, and he would light his candles, have cookies and stuff on this altar, and he was honoring his dead relatives and culture. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. And I wasn't aware fully of how powerful that was until I started practicing Ifa,
Mhm.
where I have an altar in my house with some of the ancestors from Africa and my bloodline from my dad and my mom's side of my family and family members that I did not know in my bloodline. I created this altar, and it was almost like it was not a fear. It was a celebration and a connectedness, not just to that, but beyond. And then when
Mhm.
I got to access, I was like, okay, I'm connected to this, but also what about the entities that contribute from outer space that I don't know? And what happens is that if you're willing to tap into this depth thing, you realize that it's not linear.
Yeah.
And the conversation you were talking about, where you're saying, what people will be like, well, what are you talking about? Is because so many people want to have a conversation of death being linear.
Yeah.
And they want to talk about living being linear. And y'all, I hate to tell you, here's a memo for Monday morning. It ain't linear.
It ain't linear,
That's
y'all.
this what I say within this dimension, this reality where they try to create things to be. So you have to live like this. So, and you have to always ask someone else. The,
Mhm.
the space of what I shared in the beginning of this about sitting in my car and practicing a death practice, which I know people like, what the fuck, vampire? No, a death practice of meditation is actually stepping outside of this reality and being able to look from outside as a satellite. There you go, Tori, the song Satellite by Dave Matthews. And you start actually orbiting around yourself to look at the possibilities that can still be chosen, either in body and out of body, without the separation of fear.
That's
I don't know
deep.
why I said that shit, but that just hit me.
Well, because it needed to be said.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I love it.
So
Okay, we have 3 minutes before you turn into a pumpkin.
yes, 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes. Y'all will be here every Monday. Even I'm gonna work Monday when I am in Europe. I think I'm still going if the spirits allow. Um, uh, this is a conversation that we talked about. Maybe we'll add some people with us once and occasionally. But if somebody has something they want to talk about with us, Monday mornings. You know, the cool thing about this, Lila, is that one of my uh, favorite books ever that I wrote was Fridays with Maury. Did you ever read
Mm,
that?
no, not yet. It's on the
Okay.
list.
Uh, and it was, and I had this experience, and so I think we can end on this because I got 3 minutes. Okay, so there was a woman in my life when I first moved to Portland by the name of Bonnie Graham. Leila, this is for your mom. This is the piece for your mom.
Mm,
Uh, I was the youth minister for St. Andrew's and McLeod Church when I first moved to Portland. And I was a youth minister that beyond the concept of youth ministry. I know some of the people out there was in my group like, yeah, we had so much fucking fun. John let us drink. We did all this. We did spiritual stuff. Yeah, because I was like, fuck the rules. We gonna tap into the creation of creators.
I
So
love it.
Bonnie got really sick with stage 4 cancer. And she called me, and I wasn't unaware of it. She was the office assistant for Immaculate Heart. And she called me like it feels like 6 months before she was ready to cross over. And she asked me, would I meet with her? Now, I'm going to say that here's the pivotal thing about it. The day that she asked me, I was going to take a retreat for myself at the Oregon coast. And I was going to see this woman called Sylvia. Sylvia, she was like a psychic. I can't remember. She used to be on one of the talk
Sylvia
shows.
Brown.
Brown. So Sylvia Brown. So I meet with Bonnie, and she says to me, I want to meet with you because I'm about to transition. And spirits tell me to meet with you. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what is this? So that same day I decided to go meet with her. She was on the way to the beach. So I was going to go to this trip to the beach. And Sylvia Brown was going to have at one of the casinos a presentation. I get out of the car, see this, and I get to the window. And this is the old me of not really being connected. I go up to the window, and there's one seat left in the third row, but it was $68 or $70. And I was like, I'm not paying that. That's too much. And I left. A couple months later, Sylvia died.
Mm,
There's a significance of me not jumping in where I'm not
hmm.
doing that anymore because even the death thing, and I say this, the death thing, if you're willing to walk with somebody with death, it is the most rewarding experience, one of the most rewarding experiences that you will have, where it's not something of just pure sadness, but excitement, sadness, loss, gain, creativity that you could possibly have. It is
Yeah.
7:29. If I don't get off here in a minute, y'all, I'm gonna go and turn into a pumpkin. Pumpkin. We'll see y'all next Monday. Love you, love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. Thanks for hanging
Bye,
out with me. Bye.
everybody.
Tell people about this. We'll be around Mondays.
Yeah.
Peace. Deuces.